Have you ever wondered how a truly epic power is born? I mean, not just found in some ancient ruin, but actually forged from scratch? Well, today we're diving into a magic system that does exactly that, creating a living, breathing weapon from nothing but a concept. We're going to see how a fiery bloodline is built, piece by piece. So, our journey kicks off at the foot of the legendary Mount Olympus. But here's the thing, you can't just plug this mountain into your GPS. It's a place that's always been there, but it only shows itself to people who've hit a certain level of maturity. As our heroes grow, their entire perception of the world shifts, and suddenly, the path to Olympus is right there in front of them. The mountain isn't just a place, it's the very first test. And look, this mountain is no joke. It is crawling with monstrous basilisks. And our heroes get a pretty blunt warning. Your clever little tricks and raw power? Yeah, that's not going to fly here. To survive, they need to create a power that can match these monsters in sheer, overwhelming scale. So that's the big question for this whole explainer, right? How in the world do you even start to make something like that? The answer isn't about finding some legendary sword. Nope. It's about building it from the inside out, starting with an idea in your head and forging it into reality. The first real step on this journey isn't about climbing it all. It's a philosophical gut check. Right at the entrance to Olympus, you've got the Alpha and Omega gates, and the carvings on them, well, they basically lay out the rules for the entire magic system we're about to get into. On one side, you've got the Bright Gate. It shows 7 figures, each one representing a virtue of the Dream Knights. Pretty straightforward. Then you look over at the Dark Gate, and you see this monstrous beast, its tails embodying all the opposite vices. It looks like a classic good versus evil showdown, but it's not quite that simple. And here's where it gets really interesting. See that scale underneath them? You'd think it would be a tug of war, right? One side up, one side down. But it's not. It's perfectly balanced. This tells us these forces aren't just fighting each other. They're in a state of neutralization, maybe even harmony. And this idea of balance is going to be a huge deal. Okay, so with this whole balance thing in mind, the real training finally begins. And their instructor, their own mother, Ayumi Kurosawa, drops a bombshell. That balance isn't just about good and evil, it's about the mind itself, which in this world is literally the forge where all power is made. This right here, this is the #1 rule of the whole system. You don't chant magic words or wave a wand. It's all about conceptualization. You take a real-world idea, something from science or just life experience, you understand it inside and out, and the Dreamworld's engine turns that understanding into an actual, tangible power. Your knowledge literally becomes your strength. The specific power they're trying to forge is called the Shin Seiyu Engine no Sultan Soryu, or let's just call it the Twin Azure Dragons. To master it, you have to go through 4 clear stages, which we're about to break down. First is conceptualization, then generation of form, then coordination, and finally, augmentation and equipping. This is basically our step-by-step guide to building a living weapon. All right, let's get our hands dirty. The first big job is to create the actual form of their power, a massive, fiery dragon. But, you can't exactly build a fire dragon if you can't even light a candle. And this is where that main rule clicks into place. One of the characters, Ciela, she has an knack for fire, but no real training. So she just starts thinking, okay, back to basics. How does fire actually work in the real world? Friction. And she starts right there with that simple physical concept. So her first try is just snapping her fingers. A tiny spark appears and poof, it's gone. A failure, sure, but it proves the concept works. So she scales it up, rubbing her palms together to get a bigger flame. That one dies out too. And then it hits her. A flame needs more than just a spark. It needs fuel, it needs air to keep it going. So she adds a little wind current, and boom, a stable, lasting flame. Success. Okay, now that she can keep the fire going, it's time for the generation of form. And it's a really cool 2-step process. First, you use wind currents to create the dragon's outline. Its skeleton, basically an invisible mold. Then, you just pour that sustained fire right into the wind-based shape. You build the container first, then you fill it with power. But now, they've hit a wall. They've done it, they've made these incredible fire dragons, but they're just statues. Lifeless sculptures of fire and wind. They don't move. They've built the body, but they haven't figured out how to give it a soul. So, how do you animate something made of pure energy? The answer is in the third stage, coordination. Their instructor gives them a hint saying that nerve is just another word for fortitude, which is the very essence of the fire element. It's just like how nerves in our body carry signals from the brain to our muscles. They need to build a nervous system for their dragons. So how do they pull this off? They literally create vein-like strands of wind that connect their own bodies to the dragons, and the precision this takes is just mind-boggling. The strands start out tiny where they connect to the user, but they have to grow in perfect proportion to connect to this massive dragon. It's like trying to puppeteer a skyscraper. One tiny miscalculation, and the whole thing just flails around uselessly. So, the dragon is built, it's alive, it can move. Now we get to the final and maybe the coolest stage of mastery. This is where the power stops being some generic skill and becomes a personalized, one-of-a-kind tool. This last step, augmentation and equipping, is where it gets really fun. I mean, it's not enough to just have a giant fire dragon that copies your moves. You've got to define what it can do, what its specialties are. This is where you really make the power your own, turning a raw weapon into a precision instrument. So, what kind of loadouts can they choose? And the options are incredible. Just by changing the type of flame, you completely change what the dragon does. You can equip it with Crimson Flames of Vitality, and bam, it's a powerful healing beacon. Or you can switch to Blue Flames of Fortitude, and now you can literally pump your own stamina into your friends, buffing them up at a cost to yourself. Or you can use Golden Flames of Purification to just wipe away nasty curses. It's not one power, it's an entire arsenal. Okay, so we've seen all the nuts and bolts of how the twin Azure Dragons are built. But now, the story takes a step back and asks a much, much bigger question. What does a power like this actually represent? The story uses this really powerful metaphor. A ship without a flag is guaranteed to sink. Think about it. A flag isn't just a piece of colored cloth. It's a symbol. It tells everyone who you are, what you stand for, what you believe in. When you sail under a flag, you're carrying the hopes of everyone who believes in that symbol. And that right there is the true meaning of a bloodline limit. It is so much more than just some cool ability you inherit. It's the sum total of your entire family's history. Their choices, their beliefs, their struggles, all forged into a single, tangible power. To wield it is to carry the full weight of that legacy on your shoulders, with the responsibility to carry it forward. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought. A power isn't just defined by what it can do, but by the story and the conviction behind it. It's a reflection of who you are. So it makes you think, if you could forge a power from your own life, your own beliefs, what legacy would you choose to embody?